Welcome back to another week of the A-List podcast. I'm Kwani Lunis, as always, joined by my two favorite co-hosts, Gary Washburn and A. Shaw Blakely. How are you two doing?
Wonderful. Excited about the Jay Crowder edition, episode 99 we got right here.
Yeah. Even though he's not back on the team just yet. I'm glad you didn't point out the fact that I said my favorite co-host. You're not going to call me out on that one?
I'm going to let that go. I thought Gary was going to come at you.
I was waiting for Gary to have him.
It's Gary's lane to like slash people, so I figured I was just going to step aside and let him do his thing.
Gary seemed a little quiet today. Gary, say a word.
I'm good. I'm here.
Okay.
I'm just here not to get fined. Way to go, Cal.
Favorite co-host? Yeah, I'll take.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm not like Sherrod. I don't take everything personal. So Sherrod's the one to be tripping off people.
Okay,
I know Sherrod. I know Sherrod's a little upset after what happened in Saturday afternoon's football game between Clemson University and Syracuse University, where Syracuse University had a 21-10 lead entering the fourth quarter, but somehow lost the game. So I'm going to take a break and take a step back from Sherrod because he's still reeling from that very traumatic loss.
Gary had to bring that up, didn't you?
Guns blazing.
No, I'm just saying.
I know you're just saying. Famous point. I'm just saying.
All right, well, we won't talk about the Syracuse Orange today. We'll talk about the Boston Celtics. They're headed back home, 3-1. Let's start with Jayson Tatum because he actually was just named as the player of the week. What do you two think about that very big milestone? A little sarcasm in there, but it's an important thing.
It's great for a 19-year-old to be that good, huh?
Yeah. Shocking.
Now, look, we saw top 5 Tatum first week of the season, and that's the Jayson Tatum that I know is going to be in the MVP conversation. He played like a league MVP, scoring the ball multitude of ways, getting guys involved. And the thing that he's doing, and I talked to one of the assistants about this, and they brought up the point that Jayson puts in a lot of time, a lot of work on his game. But when he's out there, he makes it look easy. And that's the scary part about where he's at. There's still things and parts of his game that you clearly can see he can get better at. And yet he's already showing that next level ability, particularly what he's doing on the defensive end of the floor. That to me has been the most impressive part about his game so far. The fact that there really haven't been nearly as many plays taken off so far per game than what I'm used to seeing from Jayson Tatum. And when you do that, plus you've got the kind of offensive skill set that he brings to the game, that's top 5 Tatum right there.
Yeah, I think he's trying to show that he's taking that next step after that difficult NBA Finals. But I also think too, like as well as he can play all year, like he's gonna have to show it again when it really counts in the playoffs for people to kind of change their mind. But he's obviously off to a great start. It would have been nice for him to build on his early first quarter in Monday's loss, where he had 15 points in the first 8 minutes and then scored 11 the rest of the way and got another tech. But Tatum is, taking the ball to the basket, hitting the three, making the right pass, doing the little things. And I think it's an encouraging sign because, it's not only just putting the ball in the basket, it's setting a screen here and there, taking the fact that 2 or 3 defenders are coming at you and hitting the open teammate for an easier shot. And I also liked that in the Orlando game, he took on guarding Paolo Banchero.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen this dude in person, Paolo Banchero.
Man-child.
Yeah. Like he is, both of his parents are athletes. Like it's just sort of what happens sometimes when 2 athletes, make a man-child. Like, he is just like big, athletic, like he got to see him in person. Like there's certain players around the league that TV don't do him justice. Scotty Barnes is one of them. Do you see Scotty Barnes in person? And the dude is a beast. And Banchero, even as a 20-year-old, 19, 20-year-old.
He's also 19. That's a fun fact right there.
Yeah, like he is like Like, and then his confidence, his ability to take the off the dribble. He's not just a dunker. It's not like, okay, at this point in his career, he's just dunking on people. Like, his three ball is going to develop. Like, he has got all the tools to be a great one. And so for Tatum to take him on, and I said he struggled from the field, 6 for 19, 23 points against the Celtics. I thought it was good for Tatum to take on that defensive challenge to try to slow him down. You know, and that's something that Tatum has to do. He can't just be like, all right, Blake, you get him. I'm gonna score all the points, but you hold him down. Like, no, dude, if you want to be a top 5 player, defense has got to be part of the arsenal. You got to use your athletic because, you know, that dude was gonna, you know, put some damage. And I said, they slowed him down, you know, 6 for 19. You know, he got to the line a good share of times, but I thought the most impressive part of that week for Jayson was like, let me try to slow down Paolo Banchero. Let me contribute my side on the defensive side because this dude is coming at us. And this dude is in for a big night. And quite honestly, there's no one who can physically match up with him. Like who? Like you can put Horford on him at 36.
Yeah.
Jaylen's too small. You know, Blake is too old. You know, Blake had a little moment with Banchero, and it was good to see him. And I talked to him after the game about Banchero and kind of like what he thought of Banchero, which I thought was interesting. Like Blake, that's sort of you, right? Like that was you in 2009. And what's it like, you know, you look at the whole Spider-Man memes, right? Like, what's it like to look at yourself when you were that, you know what I'm saying? Like as a 19-year-old or 20-year-old, when he came into the league out of Oklahoma, when you were this athletic, you know, I mean, obviously, I mean, you know, if the younger viewers don't remember Blake, because we have some younger viewers who probably don't remember Blake as well when he came out. Like, go look at some YouTube of early Blake. And it was so, but for me, the most impressive part, going back to Tatum, was the defense on Paolo Banchero and asking and kind of taking that assignment.
No, that's a really good thing to point out too, because I mean, if you go even to the press release about him being the Eastern Conference Player of the Week, they pointed out the fact that he's the first Celtic in franchise history to record over 100 points in the team's first 3 games of a season, and currently leading the NBA in scoring average and total points scored. So we always focus on Tatum as an offensive player, but I think this is a really good point because now we're seeing how he's hopefully continuing to develop that defensive game, which obviously is going to be very vital if they're trying to make another NBA Finals run. So that being said, Sherrod, you kind of touched on this a little bit, but would you say Tatum is your Week 1 MVP?
Yeah. I mean, his team had a great record. He's the leading the way with that, and he's getting it done at both ends of the floor. You know, before one of the games on the road, it was before the Miami game, and I was in the locker room and I was talking with Marcus Smart, and Tatum swings by and he asks, who's the third best defender on this team? That was the question. And because he's Marcus Smart, Rob Williams, y'all got that top shelf status. He gives him that. And, you know, Marcus, you know, I don't think Marcus was just kind of kissing up to him, but he said, you're probably the next best. And when you start looking down the roster, he's probably in that conversation. And I did a Twitter poll asking that question. And I had Tatum, I had Jaylen, and there's one other player. I think it was Derek White. And then I had other. And Tatum won by like 53% of the votes he got. So not only are, I think, the guys in that locker room recognizing what Tatum.
I don't trust that election. I don't trust.
Right, I'm looking up the poll. Do we need to have a recount?
I don't trust that election.
Okay, so I just looked it up. He had 550
Was that election real? I don't trust the Sherrod election. I don't trust Sherrod election.
I can't.
We'll have Kwani be like the election.
I don't know about that. I don't know about
the Secretary of State. No, so I'm actually looking at the poll right now. You had 553 votes. Tatum did win 50.8% of that vote. Jaylen Brown was right behind him with 23.7%. Derek White with 19.2%, and then the other was a 6.3%. So I imagine if it was a lot, there were a
landslide, Gary, landslide.
Yeah. Where are the absentee votes at? Where are the mail-in votes? Yeah.
What you want to go check the machine?
Let's check the machine. Let's go back. Let's run this.
That being said, though, if you are anywhere you are,
let's review.
November 8th, for those who are, we're joking, but make sure you are registered.
Go vote.
Put that in there real quick. Sure. Gary, do you think Tatum is a week 1 MVP despite your questioning of this poll?
Yeah, I mean, I put up the points. The Celtics went 3-0. Yeah, I mean, I said player of the week is player of the week. I mean, you might have had someone from the Utah Jazz, or you might have had Dame time.
Yes.
But I think, Eastern Conference. I'm sorry, I'm talking about what two Western teams.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but talk about my vote.
I'm sorry, but on the Eastern side, the Celtics. The Celtics were the most impressive team of the week in the East, and obviously it took a little fall on Monday, but 3-0. Tatum did his thing. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think he's Eastern Conference Player of the Week. I have no problem giving him that title. He gets that plaque from me. I'll give him the plaque. The certificate. The stamp on his car.
The participation trophy.
Gift card.
Give his mom. My son was Eastern Conference Player of the Week. She put on her car bumper. Hey, let's do that. Let's do that.
Gary, you talked about the defense, but where else have you seen Tatum make the biggest strides in these this very small sample size of the season so far?
Just his confidence and decision-making on the fly. Definitely not settling for threes, driving to the basket, attacking the rim. The other night, and even in Chicago, which, we're going to talk about that game, I'm sure, but backdooring Patrick Williams, just 3 quick backdoors, making it easy on himself and his teammates. The game can be easier if you make it that way. Tatum, at times, obviously early in his career, taking on, 3-4 defenders, trying to be Kobe. No, man, make the game easy for yourself. You don't have Jeremy Lin and a bunch of, Jordan Hill, and you don't have a bunch of, whack ass, teammates around you like Kobe did. I mean, in those later years, unfortunately, the Lakers, unfortunately, in the Kobe's final years, they're kind of like LeBron right now with the Lakers. I mean, they ain't put a good cast around him, and Kobe was taking everything on himself. You got some teammates that can do some things. So use your teammates, maximize their capabilities, and at the same time, maximize yours, and the game is easier. The extra pass, taking it to the rim, getting a 2, an easy 2 instead of a contested 3. Because teams got to respect you from the 3. Mm-hmm. So I just think he's making the most impressive thing to me is he's making the game easier on himself and his team. That's why the offense is so good.
Damn, Gary, you talk about Jordan Hill like he Drew Hill out there trying to play basketball. Damn. Listen, here's the thing about Tatum.
I'd rather have Drew Hill singing a national anthem, something like that. I'd rather have Jordan Hill. Shoot.
Damn. Here's the thing about Tatum. The thing that I think he's really made the most strides in is leadership. As you pointed out, Gary, the desire to take on the guy on the other team who had it going. I don't know if Tatum would have done that as easily as he did it in that Orlando game. The fact that he is figuring out different ways to score, making the game easier for him and thus making it easier for his teammates. Little things like that are just kind of building a case that Jayson Tatum is starting to figure out how to be, I think, a more traditional leader. Because I think he's always been a leader in his own way, but I think he's finally figuring out how to do it in a more traditional way that makes sense for not only his teammates, but for those of us watching him. His ability to, again, elevate those around him. That, to me, is going to be the next level for Jayson Tatum. We know he can score. We know he can get buckets. We know he can rebound and can defend. But can he elevate the guys around him? That, to me, is the next stage of his growth and development. If he's ever going to really become a 5-tool talent player, a guy who can score, rebound, defend, pass, and make his teammates better. That's the missing piece in the Tatum puzzle right now.
Gary, what do you think is the missing piece?
The missing piece of Tatum puzzle, just overall consistency, and secondly, to me, the emotional aspect. The tech last night, he's already got 2 techs. Mm-hmm. He's on pace for 41 technicals. That's not good. That would be a lot. He'd miss a lot of games.
Mm-hmm. That's Rasheed Wallace like.
Yeah, he's got to chill on that. But I just think sometimes still letting the officials get to his head. Still, and I get it. He feels like he gets a short whistle, and we can talk about the Chicago game and the officiating crew. In that game, I remember looking
at
the
bad,
screen.
Gary.
I looked at the screen and I was like, it's trouble. This is going to be, I should have tweeted it too. That was my fault. And I usually don't tell you, I told you so.
You're right, but
really
he was like, this is,
I didn't really tell you so. So I can't really say that. But I remember looking at that crew and going, it's going to be tough tonight. Mm-hmm. Two inexperienced officials surrounded by Mark Davis. So I think Tatum's got to be mature enough to lead his team and not let that crew get under his skin. Some of the calls that were made, and we'll talk about that. But I just think the overall maturity level, get back on defense, stop arguing calls, stop talking. And then now officials know that Tatum's a hand, the whole doing this or, that those gestures are going to get you texts. Like now that's his reputation. Officials are looking for that. So they're going to call that quicker on him than other players who might do it. And that was the same example last night where he didn't do anything overly demonstrative, but he did raise his hands up, boom, tech. Like he's got to be cool on that. Yeah. And, he's got to go 10, 15 games without a tech. Like, because obviously he's already got 2. And then 15 is when you obviously start missing games. 16 when you start missing games. So and that's a lot of text between them. But we're only after game 4. So Tatum's got to turn on and be cool.
And it's to the point now where it's a reputation thing with him.
It is
because there was when he picked that first tech up, and then you see Vucevic did basically the same thing. And Tatum points out, wait, how is that not a tech? But what I did is a tech.
That was the thing.
That's a reputation thing.
Yeah. The thing about last night was, I was talking with some Chicago reporters and we all looked at the replay of what Vucevic did and they were like, wow, that was twice as worse than what Tatum did. And even the official, Cheryl Flores, had to avoid getting hit by Vucevic when he did the ball slant, but yet that was called just that was not called, or it was not respect the game thing. So there was some strange happenings, and I'm not, we're not going to do Tim Donaghy here, but it just was a poorly officiated game, and it didn't benefit the Celtics. But on those occasions, because those are things that are going to happen, you're going to need to be better, and you're going to need to compose yourself. That means for Jayson. That means for Grant Williams. And I can't really blame Joe Mazzulla. He was trying to get her. He
did not get his money's worth for that tech.
No, he was on the court during stoppage of play. Okay, usually when coach is on the court during the game, that's he was on the court during the stoppage of play when Jaylen got fouled by Vucevic, who did that, and was walking to the free throw line. So Joe walked on the floor, not like mid-court or near the logo. He walked a few feet on the court and tried to get the attention of Flores, and that's when Mark Davis decided to protect them and, say, get back and, get back to the box, that type of thing. But it was a stoppage of play, and that was a rookie coach tech. If Popovich, if Eric Spoelstra is doing the same thing, they do not get a tech on that play. Let's be honest. They don't. That was, listen, young coach, don't show us up like that. Get back into learn how this thing goes. Yeah, before you start tripping and get you a tech. So I thought that was kind of that was a lesson to Mazzulla. Like, you ain't there yet. Mm-hmm. And because if you really look at it, if any of those other coaches had done that, that would not have been 2 techs. And they said, Mazzulla said he didn't even curse.
And that's why you didn't get your money's worth.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into that Chicago game in just a second. But for now, I might have a solution for the bad reffing problem. Adam Silver, if you're watching this, I think you need, indeed. No one has a business like the NBA or your business, our viewers and listeners, with all its strengths and challenges. To succeed, you need a hiring partner that adapts to your needs. You need Indeed. Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resumes match the job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data here in the US. Indeed makes it easy to start hiring. It only takes about 10 minutes or less for most small business owners to post a job, according to Indeed data as well. When you sponsor a post on Indeed, you're 3 times more likely to get a hire, which already sounds like the best bargain you could ask for. So here at the A-List Podcast, we've got you covered. We've got a little promo code for you. You can start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/A-List. You can claim that $75 credit now at Indeed.com/A-List. Indeed.com/A-List. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. So let's talk about this Chicago game because there was a lot going on. Grant Williams gets ejected. Interim head coach Joe Mazzulla gets ejected. Everyone it's chaotic because to the points you two were just making right before this last break, it's hard to maintain, and I know Jayson Tatum has this reputation already, unfortunately, but let's be honest, these are players. They're the best at their sport in the country, if not the world, and it's natural for us to get passionate about things that we do in general. If you are playing a game, it's natural for players to shout things and yell. So how do we get to this point where, as a professional baller, you can't necessarily express yourself because you could be penalized in some way? That's the tricky part for me, but would love to hear what you two think about that and the game overall in the rookie officiating.
Well, I'm going to leave the rookies alone because
Okay.
they rookies, I get it. They're going to learn. It doesn't do any good. We know they did not have a good game. We know they made a lot of screw-ups, and it is what it is. But you've got to be better than that. I mean, at the end of the day, the game is very simple. Make shots, get stops. When you do those 2 things at a high level, you win. And the Celtics, they stopped making shots and they stopped getting stops. And that's why they lost. The refs, sure, they always have a factor in the game, positive or negative. But at the end of the day, you got to do your job. And the Celtics as a team didn't do their job. I thought that in the second half, they started settling more for 3-point shots and not really attacking the rim like they had been doing previously. And part of that had to do with the fact that when they did attack the rim, they were missing layups. I mean, Jaylen, I think, missed more bunnies in that game than he'd missed all season long. Tatum, I thought, had a number of shots that were in and outs. Derek White, who'd been on just a torrid tear, you figured he was going to have a game or two where his numbers were going to look like they've done in the past, and that was it for him. Grant Williams couldn't make the impact that he's been able to make the first 2 or 3 games. And so all those things colliding in one game, you were going to get your ass kicked if all those things happen on the same night. And so Tatum, I think it's just a matter of composure. Part of his learning process of being a leader is knowing when to just bite your tongue and keep moving and hit that cat with a 3-ball in his mug. Or dunk on that little guard that's trying to guard you and just take him on a block. Do the things that got you to the league that you know you're capable of doing, and let that be where you channel that energy and anger at. Not just the ref for making a bad call, which we all know they're going to do. They're going to make some good calls too, but they're going to make some bad calls that don't piss you off. Don't let that stop you from being great.
Yeah. I feel like the problem was a lot of problems. One, it was a very inexperienced crew.
Yeah.
With Mark Davis being the lead official, it's really never a good situation when Davis is kind of allowed to kind of run things. And then also, I just thought the Celtics, I mean, remember, they were up 32-14, 35-16. Like, they punched first. The problem was the Chicago bench was very good. Like, Derek Jones, real athletic guy, Goran Dragic, who always gives the Celtics trouble. Andre Drummond came off the bench and got like 7 rebounds in 8 minutes. Like, Chicago's always been a matchup issue for the Celtics because of their size. And I think the bench just energized the Celtics. And then the Celtics started slipping. Like, when they were up 18, they started giving away easy transition baskets. They started giving away easy drives. Like, the Bulls started chipping away. You could see it. You could see, like, okay, now it's 18, now it's 14, now it's 10. And then it's like, okay, now it's 6 or 5. They done lost control of this game. Like, it's over. Like, their manhandle on the game is over. And I thought that the defense really failed them. They couldn't stop Vucevic in the paint, and they couldn't the kid Io. I'm not.
It's not Fiondu.
Yeah, nah. Io DeSumo, like the kid from Illinois, number 12, Io DeSumo, like the dude can't miss. Like, okay, last year, his rookie year, he was 18 for 20 from the field against the Celtics. Last night, he was 8 for 9. That's crazy. He's 26 for 29 from the field against the Celtics in his career. Not 20 for 29, that's good. 18 for 29 is good. 26 for 29. Like, he's shooting 80-something, 88, 87% against the Celtics in his career. Like, he couldn't miss. And Jayson was guarding, and he was just taking Jayson to the rack. Yeah, getting to the rim, and then he hit 4 threes, like stuff like that, because DeMar was DeMar. He was solid. Vucevic was a problem. Zach LaVine wasn't all that great, although he had his moments. But it was the bench, and it was a lack of defense. They couldn't get stops. I mean, you can't lead a game 35-16, and then you trail. They trailed 65-49. Okay, so what is that? 51-14 run. Sorry, 49-14 run. If I'm doing my math right, 35-16, and they were down 65-49. Like, that's crazy. No championship caliber team should allow that type of run. So that was unprecedented. And was it like Chicago just playing lights out? Yep. Guys hitting shots they usually, but it was also lack of defense, the free throw line. I think this is where they had a problem. At halftime, the Bulls outshot them from the free throw line 19-3. The Celtics were like, okay, what's going on here? I think the foul disparity was like 18-8 in the first half. But also a problem for the Celtics, too many damn threes. I think they took 25 shots in the second quarter and 16 were threes. Like, they tried to, they were hot, then they went cold, and then they stopped scoring. Mm-hmm. The second quarter obviously was the game. That was the worst quarter by far. Worst quarter in a long time, dating back to last season. So they learned a lesson. 1, rebounding's an issue. 2, you can't let your foot off the gas. They were moving the ball. They were just looking like a machine. And then all of a sudden, come down the court, launch a 3. Just bad threes. And then guys, and what I've seen with Malcolm Brogdon is, he gets blocked at the rim a lot. Yeah. And that's the thing that he's got to work on his finishing. I'm not talking about like he can't do it or whatever, but Brogdon, when he gets to that rim, sometimes he's gotten his shot blocked, and I can need to look that up through the 4 games. He's not that quite that, because he's not that freakish athlete where he's going to dunk on you a lot at all. So sometimes he's they need scoring from him. And sometimes, and a couple of times last night, he just either didn't finish the layup or he got blocked at the rim when they really needed him to score. Because obviously they weren't stopping the Bulls. So I think, and then here comes the officiating. And then I said it was a poorly officiated game. I think anyone who saw the game would admit that. It was too many whistles. It was not fair in terms that I'm not a Celtic homer at all. I don't like when fans blame the refs. We're playing 8 on 5s. No, but last night, we talk about the Vucevic play where Tatum did the same thing and got a tech, things like that. It was a little slanted. But the Celtics got to be better. But the thing is, it's a humbling game, right? Like the Warriors got blown out at home or lost at home to the Nuggets. Like even the best teams are getting beat this year. Like Memphis got blown out at Dallas. Like, Portland's coming out 4-0. New Orleans came home looking good, lost at home to Utah. Like, this is a humbling game. And I think the Celtics might have thought, we're beyond that. We ain't getting humbled at all. If we lose, it's going to be close. But they got humbled last night. Maybe, back to practice, when they get back to work, they know, okay, this is because Chicago got humbled. I mean, I remember talking to our friend Casey Johnson. He was just like, man, the Bulls are terrible. They lost 132-96 at home to the Cavs the other night. Like, that was the same team that gave up 132 points to Donovan Mitchell and them and got blown out in their home opener, and they came out and looked like the Bulls that everybody was talking about, like they was going to compete in the East. So it's a humbling game. Sometimes it just ain't your night, and that might have been the case for the Celtics.
Well said. Jaylen Brown, we haven't really talked about him today. What do you think about him?
Well, general questions. Get to the point. What you trying to say?
Do you think
don't tippy toe? Just walk in the room.
What you think about him? I'll be random.
She tippy toeing in, so like,
I know.
Right.
Oprah and them and Gayle King and them wouldn't do that. You don't.
I know. I'm sorry. I did not do my journalism queen justice. All right. So I'll ask a specific question. Jaylen Brown, do you think he's in all-star mode? I know it's
yes. He's playing like one. He is. It's just his ability to finish at the rim, his shot making. But again, there's still room for him to grow and get better. I thought the one thing he's got to figure out is on those nights when you're not making shots, what can you bring to the table to help the team? I still don't think he's really figured that portion of his game out yet to a point where he can go 4 for 16 and still be impactful. That's part of his growth, part of his evolution. But he's still a hell of a player.
Yeah, I think he's off to a great start. I think he's got something to prove. But like Sherrod said, he's got to do more than just score. Like get a steal, get 12 boards. If you're 5 for 15 from the field, damn it, get 12 rebounds. Mm-hmm. Get 3 steals. D up. Like, don't let DeRozan back you down. Like, just do something else, because I said, like Sherrod said, like, when the ball isn't going through the hoop and it's not going to be on all nights for these guys, do something else to help your team win. Get dirty, get under the boards. If you got to get some fouls, you got to push Vucevic off the block and get a foul or two. That's what you got to do. You got to make a statement. I thought Jayson and Jaylen were both trying to score the Celtics to the win, and they need to do the other little things to get the win. That was, like the other night when Jayson had 12 boards. That's what you need from Jaylen on occasion. Not every night, but I want to see Jaylen average 6 to 7 boards a game, maybe 8. Not 4.5. Not you happen to get a rebound because a missed shot lands in your arms, and you can start the break. Like, get in there and get dirty. They needed all hands on deck last night to rebound. They got out rebounded 60-44, and it was worse than that. I think it was like 52 to something like 31 at one time. Like it was 20 plus until obviously the end of the game, and the Celtics put in Blake and Cornette and all those guys. So they needed all hands on deck, and they didn't get it.
That perfectly, well, not necessarily, but it segues into the bigger story that you actually wrote in the Boston Globe, Gary, about Kanye West now going by Ye.
Yay! Boo!
Jaylen, I can't stand you. And Jaylen Brown, he signed to Donda Sports as one of the first to him, and I think it was Donaldson. They signed as professional athletes for
Aaron Donald, from the
Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald.
He fell with the Rams.
Yes, exactly. So those are the 2 main professional athletes that signed with the Donda Sports agency that Kanye founded. And now, as you both know, and of course, I'm sure our listeners have heard that Ye is under fire, water, all of it right now because of his anti-Semitic tweets and posts that he's been putting out on to a point where he actually got banned off of these social media platforms. So, Gary, you did a really good piece in the Globe of just basically Jaylen sharing that he doesn't necessarily agree with those points that Ye had made or has made, but he's still going to stay with the Donda Sports agency. So from your reporting, what do you think, is there a long-term effect for Jaylen Brown by not only just staying with the Donda Sports Association, but just being affiliated with Kanye West at this point?
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
You know, Jaylen is, and I don't think he's seeking a shoe deal, but he's a shoe free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's a very important thing. That's another major revenue stream that Jaylen's got to consider.
And I should note that Adidas did drop Kanye on Tuesday for context. Yeah. So I'll let you finish your point.
Yeah, it's bad. You know, creative CAA as representatives dropped them on Monday. So for Jaylen, this is a big deal because, you know, he's a shoe free agent. Right. And I understand his point of view of like, well, I deal with a lot more people than Kanye West at Donda, and I want to, you know, they're about helping the community and helping me market things for my community. Like Kwani, you went to his event, the Juice event in at Seaport a couple weeks ago. You know, where he gave out free T-shirts and, you know, was it the Energy's About to Shift T-shirts, things like that.
And had Black artists from Boston, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's doing the right thing. I think Jaylen understands what he needs to do, but I also think there's a loyalty factor there where he might need to move on from the loyalty. Like, and I think it's a situation like, and it's a different example, but it's like, let's look at the Celtics coaching staff, right? Damon Stoudemire, Ben Sullivan, you know, Tony Dodd, like all those guys, okay? The guys that Ime brought in, right? They're still there. And they're still involved. They ain't quit. They had a friend who did something inappropriate, dumb, stupid, whatever you want to paraphrase his actions, reckless, tasteless. You know, we all had time to have friends who make terrible decisions. And I think you have to determine, okay, do I defend this person or break affiliation? I think Jaylen's like, maybe my man needs some help. And the way that Kanye West is talking, he doesn't act like he needs help. He acts like he knows it all. He's been like that for years. We all know this is not the first offensive thing he said. He said plenty of offensive things about the African-American community that was kind of swept under the rug or whatever about slavery being a choice. Like Kanye been tripping for years, okay? Kanye had, I mean, you know, I think through the fire, all that was like 2004. So he had a great 5 to 6 year run. And then he started becoming eccentric, and then everybody labeled him a genius and he believed it. Then he dived into having, you know, real public, personal, all that stuff, right? So Kanye been tripping for a decade now. Like he's just been that eccentric, like guy for a decade. But I think Jaylen wants to try to like not be disloyal and just walk away. But there's certain times I think you've got to walk away and you've got to say, hey man, I can't have you back on this one. I can have you back on a lot, not on this one. And I don't think he has his back, but I think he's like, it's a bigger decision than just like Donda. You know, I think he's had relationships with other people there, working with other people there. I think he's saying to himself, like, I don't want to walk away because I like what they're doing. In which I asked him, and people were, well, why are you asking? Like I asked him about starting, like, well, Jaylen, why don't you start your own then? Why are you depending on, you're a millionaire. Why are you depending on Kanye West? Start your own marketing firm. And that's a big endeavor. And that's what he told me. That's a lot for a man who just turned 26. But Jaylen, start your own. and you can say what you want. You can have your say, and you don't have to like kind of hang on to be affiliated with a guy who's obviously got a lot of hate in his heart and a lot of discrimination and racism and all of the above, all of it, right? Hatred of his own people, all that stuff. So you don't have to, because it's poison. I mean, I got, there's people hitting me up like, man, this guy needs to run away from him. Like people in the league, he's killing his marketability. He's killing his brand off the floor. All these things, and he's got a deal coming out, a max deal. Obviously, I don't think it'll affect him on the court, but like a shoe deal, he gonna try to sell himself to Nike now or New Balance or any of these other Under Armour. Are they gonna touch him? And he just like, so I think there's a lot at stake for Jaylen, who needs to sit down and think about it. But I understand his loyalty to him telling me basically, hey, if your family member is in trouble, you just don't wash your hands of them. You try to help them. I get that. I do, because we've all had family members, who have done some things, and you just like, hey man, you gotta get some help. I'll help you, but you're in a bad place. You're doing bad things. You're in a bad way. I'm not gonna walk away. So I think I can admire that in a sense, but not the person, because I don't think this. I personally don't think Kanye is caring that much about Jaylen, to be honest. Is he going to, is it reciprocated? Like, I think Jaylen needs to run from this guy, because this has got to the point now where at first it was, the eccentric thing was kind of cute, I guess. People thought, oh, that's just Kanye. And then it got worse and worse and worse. Then he started making these crazy statements and, that's just him being him. And now he's made a lot of enemies. And he ain't getting that back. And Jaylen's, I think, a little too young and still has his career ahead of him to put his feet on the island and be like, I'm going down with him. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Run from this guy, and start your own. Work on with your foundation. To me, my advice would be start your own foundation. You've got the Juice Foundation, but start your own marketing company. Or there's a lot of good marketing companies out there if you want to deal with them, smaller ones that are Black owned, if you want to deal with a Black owned company, whatever, to help you with your off the court endeavors. Donda ain't it. He's got to go.
Yeah, I mean, for Jaylen, loyalty only goes so far. And that point where it has to go separate ways is when the values that you have don't justify the loyalty. I mean, right now, I understand what Jaylen is trying to do and where he's coming from. And again, much respect to him for that. But he is building a platform of sorts for himself that is built on technology. It's built on social justice. It's built on so many things that have a very legitimate inclusivity to them. And Kanye, that ain't what Kanye's about. To me, that was one of the more fundamental aspects of Jaylen's relationship with Kanye that just didn't make no damn sense to me. I mean, Jaylen is about building bridges, and Kanye is about blowing them bad boys up. And he don't give a damn what the collateral damage is when he does that. And Gary, in reading your story, the one thing I thought was interesting was at the very end where Jaylen was talking about there are other people involved in all this. And I took that and I interpret that as him saying that if I walk away now, I'm good. But there's other people who won't be good. And I do think, Gary, the point that he was kind of alluding to, and you touched on it also, about creating his own marketing wing, creating his own community service-centric endeavor. That, I think, would make a lot of sense for Jaylen to start putting the pieces of that together and then migrate those people on Donda, who he's close with, who he has a clear empathy for, and bring them over with him and go that route. Because again, Jaylen, he's been so about inclusivity and positiveness and all that, and Kanye hasn't. And at some point, you gotta be real. Is my loyalty worth compromising my values? Am I willing to make that trade-off? And Jaylen right now, he's kind of in this state of meh, maybe. And that's not good. That's not good.
before we move on to
what do you think, Kwani? Can you offer? Yeah.
I agree. It's definitely a tricky situation, especially Gary. I think the point that you mentioned about loyalty is one that, especially when you're dealing with someone of that caliber. It's Kanye West, who, as you mentioned, is a musical genius, has done and been very accomplished in his field, respectively. So I can understand. I'm not saying this is the
Stevie
case.
Wonder, a musical genius. Let's take the genius thing in Kanye. That's a sensitive topic with me. Stevie, Marvin, Michael Jackson,
he's
Kanye.
arguably,
I'm sorry.
Triggered Gary. Gary.
That's why, no offense, but that's why he is probably drowning in his ego and drowning in arrogance, because everybody has said, oh my God, because let's be honest, in the mid 2000s, he had no competition. Nobody was doing anything like until Drake and Pharrell and all them. But when he came out, he had no competition. So everybody was like, oh, I've never heard like sampling. You never heard sampling. You never like some of the stuff. I just think he reinvented the wheel, but he did it at the perfect time. But I do think has made good music decade ago. But Kwani, I hate to cut you off, but
no,
I just think the genius thing, I think part of the genius thing is why we're here. They're like, oh, he's just so intelligent. No, he's not. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we'll say arguably, because there are people who think he's a genius and there are that don't. I don't know if there's a formulaic, thing you can put into play to decide whether or not he is, but yeah, we'll table that for another day. That being said, I understand, even if, let's say, Jaylen grew up as a fan of Kanye West, and then now you're at a point where you get to work with someone of his level, that I think alone is already just a big moment. You're working with someone who does have this worldwide, whether it's infamy now at this point, he is a worldwide brand. So I could see why he'd want to align with Ye at that point. But to both of your points, I do see it as very dangerous now, considering the backlash. I also agree, though, the comments that Kanye West made, what was it, like 2 years ago about slavery being a choice. And like from the moment he started to just say things in the media circuit where he realized it was going to gain traction, I haven't been able to take him seriously to that point. And that's where I struggle with, why would I want to be aligned with someone who, what is the end goal with Kanye West at this point? Like, what is the goal of him saying, he legitimately said that Adidas can't drop me because I could say anti-Semitic things and Adidas wouldn't drop me. He clearly
and Adidas was like, "Oh, really?"
Yeah, he said it twice, really? Like just really to drive the point home. And I'm just like, what was the point of you even saying that? And then again, obviously, fast forwarding, he actually makes anti-Semitic comments on Twitter. All that being said, it's a hard decision. I mean, it shouldn't be a hard decision, but I understand why it is in some ways because of the level of influence. But at the same time, the backlash, I think now you can't hide from it. But also, is Jaylen really going to suffer, you think?
Well, I don't think Jaylen is going to suffer as much as I think that Jaylen recognizes that if you're not careful, they could become part of your narrative without you wanting it to be part of your narrative. And you never know how long that's going to stick. And Jaylen is a guy that, and we've talked about this before. I mean, Jaylen is going to be an elected official in some capacity.
Oh, for sure.
It's a matter of if he wants to do that. That's literally what it's going to take. Does he want to go? And this is something that you better believe can come back to bite him when he has aspirations to do things on a much more global basis for his community, the global community. Yeah. They're going to be looking like, well, you might make a good president, but damn, what was going on back in 2022 when Kanye was tripping out and you were like, I don't know if I'm going to stick with him or I'm going to go. Should I stay? Should I go? I mean, why was that such a hard decision when this dude was making anti-Semitic comments that you did not condone, and you made that clear you did not agree with him, but you didn't part ways with him? Why? Those are the kind of things that Jaylen, and again, not criticizing him for making that, because I think I agree it is a difficult decision if you're trying to balance your loyalty to someone who has the kind of platform that you would ideally like to connect with, but that loyalty is conflicting with your own personal values, and at some point, you gotta pick one or the other. You can't rock and roll with both. You can't be loyal to a guy who doesn't have the same values as you. And when he's talking about anti-Semitic and he's talking about slavery was a choice, wearing White Lives Matter t-shirts, Jaylen, that ain't you, bro. So if that's not what you value, then how can you continue to stay loyal to someone who isn't aligned with you like that? And again, that's not here and there, but that's something that if you're Jaylen, you have to be thinking about the short and long-term implications of riding this out.
I think, okay, this is what I think. Jaylen just turned 26 years old. Okay.
Yep.
Happy belated.
Happy belated. Now, I don't know if, and I think Jaylen's a very educated man, but I don't know if his history and his education in terms of the what anti-Semitic is, the impact of that, the history of the relationship between Jews and like all of that, all the stuff that isn't probably taught in school, all the stuff that is hard to learn. You've got to really go out your way and learn about the impact of the Jewish community on the relationships with other races, Black, like the whole slavery. Like you have young people that probably agree with Kanye West, who didn't watch Roots, ain't got no, their slavery to them is some kind of it's a myth. It's a Jamie Foxx movie. Like although you're intelligent, this requires in some cases, in many cases, doing real study and real work in terms of education, in terms of history, in terms of the impact on certain words, on certain people, and certain statements. It's like the N-word. You see younger people throw it around like it's going out of style. They have no idea what their parents, grandparents, great-grandparents all went through hearing that word, how demoralizing that word is to someone of our community. But you see young people, oh, that ain't that big of a deal. Ooh, I'm owning it again. I'm like BS excuses, their lack of education on some of these topics, the history. Like they haven't been to the Civil Rights Museum. They have, according to them, Martin Luther King said one speech, the I Have a Dream speech, and made one statement. Content and color of our character is not the color of our skin. That's it. That's all they know, right? They don't know their history like that. So I think some of these statements that Kanye makes, and the reason probably he has, reading my Twitter feed, there's people who are defending, some of the stuff he said was right, like, is because they lack the education and the history of what those statements make. And I think that we're assuming that a 26-year-old man knows all that, and that will require someone maybe older, parent, agent, mentor to sit down and say, listen, here's a book, here's a passage, here's some history, soak this in, understand what the hurt and pain this dude is leashing out. And now the allies he's making, not the kind of allies you want to make, from these statements. People who have real hate in their heart, and racism and sexism and misogyny, and just like who have really in their heart. So I think there needs to be, and I think it'll be a teaching moment for Jaylen and for other young people, like learn about the history of what some of these statements mean, their impact, learn about, like I said, the civil rights movement wasn't just King saying a bunch of speeches. It was a lot of people dying, like getting dying. That was a 50-year process from the 1920s and 30s to the 1970s, and it didn't end in the civil rights era didn't end in 1968 or 69. Like it continued. We look at, I think we tend to focus on just one or two events, the I Have a Dream speech and the March on Washington, and that was it. Oh, that was really nice. And then all of a sudden Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Bill, and everything was okay after that, right? Like, no, it wasn't. And so I think that younger people, especially, and some older people too, need to educate themselves. And I think it's hard for these guys to might not know the importance when you're born, and I'm not trying to be funny, Quan, but you're born in 1998, like your perspective on the world and race and word usage and what is offensive is completely different than my generation. When I heard certain words from people, we all got called certain things at school that wasn't flattering, that wasn't meant to be just the N word, and it wasn't a means of friendship. But you get young people now, many cases, some old people use it or use words and they have no idea what they mean. They just sound cool, or they just being hip, or that's what they like. So I just think there needs to be some education here, and maybe, people like, in Jaylen and can read up on some of the things that Kanye has said and how they've hurt people and the history of that and why there's such a groundswell of get rid of this dude, because obviously he has a lot of followers. He has a lot of people who, like I said, Kwame, you mentioned, a lot of people who literally consider him a prophet in a sense.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us, I remember, when we were young, Stevie Wonder, when I remember Stevie Wonder was telling people, pushing to sign the King bill for the King holiday. People was following Stevie, he was people love Stevie like that. And Stevie didn't let us down. Stevie ain't done nothing, Stevie's still a prophet in a sense. But I remember in the 80s when Stevie was helped lead the sign the King bill. And I guess black people was like, damn, I guess it's important. Stevie Wonder's at the White House. Yeah. Shoot. Oh, okay. Damn. Okay, Steve. Things like that, we have a tendency to look up to our artists like that. And I think people look up to Kanye. They did. They shouldn't now, but they did. And he has a lot of power. And I think some of the people who follow him need to read up and educate themselves on some of the things he's saying. And it's not just, he's just saying something he's saying something to rub people the wrong way. And they don't like that. He keeping it real. No, this is not keeping it real. This is ridiculous. This is dangerous, sexist, racist, anti-Semitic, etc. And so I think education might need to be the next thing over the next period for Jaylen and other people who might not understand the enormity of this.
Before we close out, I want to quickly go around the league. First question, which is a bigger surprise to the two of you? Philly being 1-3 right now, or Utah being 3-1? Go.
Utah 3-1. They strategically tried to break that team into a crapper, and I feel bad for Danny Ainge because they're not quite functioning the way he anticipated. But the season is young. There's still plenty of time for Utah to fall to the back of the pack, which I think they will. But I give Will Hardy a lot of credit. He's got his kids playing hard, and they're.
Wait, are you saying he's trying to tank?
I didn't say that. Adam Silver's the one that's talking to folks about tanking.
Adam Silver was very, very candid about that.
You don't want to talk about tanking. The rest of us are like, what? Not the NBA teams. They would never do anything like that. All we do is we just trust the process. That's what we do. We trust the process. Play hard. It's like the Sixers did. Trust the process. How'd that working out?
All right.
Gary, what you think, Gary?
I'd say Utah 3-1. Mm-hmm. They strangely lost to winless Houston, so the league is just one. The league is like that sometimes. But Danny put together. You got to look at that roster, and it's not they didn't put together a bunch of G leaguers. Lauri Markkanen's a lottery pick. Colin Sexton's a lottery pick. Jared Vanderbilt is like a rising defender in the league. Mike Conley is still on the damn team. Jordan Clarkson, the whole thing of Utah's going to win 15 games is kind of funny because that's a team that's going to play hard. And all those Malik Beasley, they got a bunch of dudes. Walker Kessler, they got 4 or 5 lottery picks on that team. In addition to guys, Conley and Jordan Clarkson. And guys like that, so this is not a team of just who is that? Who he play for? dudes from the G League or overseas that like they got like actual NBA players. So I'm not like the fact that they're playing together. They won at New Orleans. They won at Minnesota. Their first game against former teammate Rudy Gobert. Like I said, I think Will Hardy's doing a good job, but I also think they're not as bad as people think. Look at San Antonio. San Antonio they won at Minnesota the other night. San Antonio putting it on teams. Like these young, like tanking is hard. And I'm not saying they should get like tanking's hard because you telling young guys not to hoop.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? San Antonio got a bunch of young cats. Primo, Vassell, Keldon Johnson. You got our friend Josh Richardson over there. You know, you got Jakob Poeltl. Like, you got guys who were lottery picks or first rounders. They're like, man, I'm not going to lose on purpose. Buck you. You know what I'm saying? And I think the same thing with the Jazz. It's hard to get these dudes to tank unless you bench them. But we'll see what happens in January, February. Are these dudes playing? Are they missing 6 weeks with a back strain? You know, or what's going on here? Are they? But yeah, like you're telling young, hungry player, Colin Sexton, young bull, you think he ain't hungry after kind of getting pushed out of Cleveland and like being, I mean, he was like the number 4 or 5 overall pick. Like Sexton was like, I've seen him kill the Celtics. That's for damn sure. Like you asking me, you know, with Mike Conley and Jordan Clarkson, who can put like you saying not play well, not play hard. I mean, so I think it's a surprise, but I think this whole tanking thing has been talked about way too much because unless teams decide to rest guys or sit guys for phantom injuries, then that's what we're talking. But for now, those games, look at Chicago, what Chicago did to the Celtics last night. Like Chicago was 1-2. Like you don't know on any given night you could lose. And I think that the league has proven that so far.
So you mentioned Will Hardy, a former Boston Celtics assistant coach. And obviously, again, everything I say or ask is with a grain of salt. I know we're only 4 games into the season at this point.
Only way to give Utah the championship, Gary. That's
I know, look. Western Conference champs. No, I'm kidding. But Will Hardy, do you see him as a front runner coach for Coach of the Year?
After a week? Yeah. I mean, he's got his team playing hard and they're winning. And the other thing, and Gary kind of touched on this, what typically the coaches that win Coach of the Year are the ones who the bar is set very low at the start of the season, and they overachieve. And right now, Will Hardy and the Utah Jazz, in the eyes of many, are overachieving with their record. So yeah, he's off to a great start. But if we're talking about Utah in like January and they won like 50-60% of their games at that point, then absolutely. But you know, he's off to a great week. We'll see what he does going forward, though.
Yeah, I think it's a little premature, obviously. Kwani, but I know you just throwing out the question, but I think to win Coach of the Year, a team's going to have to win more than half their games. So if Utah wins 45 games, yeah, he's definitely a candidate. But if let's say he leads them and they're 36-46, like I don't see there'll be other candidates, right? Because some team, whether it be Detroit, Toronto,
even
whatever,
Boston,
will exceed expectations. Like the leading front runner to me is Chauncey Billups, right? 4-0. They won in LA. They beat up Denver. Like beat
Phoenix in overtime.
Like that. They 4-0. So if let's say Portland wins 48 games after last year, I think Chauncey's definitely in it. I think to be Coach of the Year, you got to have a winning record. Now unless you took a step from where you took a 10-win team and then you won 38 games or something like that, some tremendous jump. But remember, Utah was in the playoffs last year, so they're making the jump with a new roster. So I think they'll be in the talk, but I think that for Popovich in San Antonio or, Will Hardy, they're going to have to win more than half their games.
We kind of touched on this last week, but quickly, do you think Doc Rivers, is there any need for concern also very early on in the season?
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. This is not what the Sixers fan base was anticipating.
That process is not trustworthy.
Yeah. People are not trusting the process that they're seeing right now. I think Doc, he's not what I would say an immediate trouble, but they got to turn this thing around and soon. I don't know if Doc is going to make it to Thanksgiving if things continue the way they are. I mean, if we're talking about this team going into Thanksgiving with like winning 25-30% of their games, I can't see him left.
That's right. So you got my man fired on Thanksgiving.
And you know I love Doc. I said before Thanksgiving, Gary. Come on now.
You get fired on Thanksgiving.
I love Doc, but that team is underachieving. And at the end of the day, it's on Doc. I mean, you look at what Doc, this is year number 3, and they haven't been able to get out of the second round. And they've had rosters that talent-wise were easily in the top 3 or 4 in the East, and they couldn't get over the hump. So, and the other thing too, and Gary, the other thing too, you start looking at the makeup of that Sixers team. You got James Harden, PJ Tucker, James Harden's boy, House Kid, another one of James' guys, Daryl Morey, who that's James's guy. And all of a sudden you start looking around and there's so many pieces that are James Harden centric, except Doc. And if you're not winning and he's your best player, which I think at this point he's played better than Joel, it's hard to imagine that he's going to be like, you know what, we're struggling now, but Doc, we good. We're going to be good with Doc. I don't think it's going to go down like that.
Yeah, unless there's a coach that Harden has in mind who's ready to step
like Mike D'Antoni?
Yeah, but man, that's just all offense. I mean, like we've all been down this Mike D'Antoni merry-go-round. That's not long lasting. That's a flash in the pan. I think Mike D'Antoni has 72. Like, do you want to run him out there again and have a great offense and no defense? Like, to me, that would be, that would be not a good idea.
Let me ask you this question, Gary. What if the Sixers said, hey, we want Ime Udoka?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. I mean, I think the Celtics would let him go.
Ooh. That makes things spicy.
I like this. That makes the rivalry more fun, too.
It's spicy then. Ooh.
But who knows whether Morey...
what's James and Ime's relationship? Obviously they were in Brooklyn together.
Yeah, they were in Brooklyn together.
But I don't know if it's publicly recorded how their relationship is.
Yeah, we don't know that. But it's another. He's gonna, as time passes and this thing starts to
fade away. Yeah,
the sports world continues to turn and things happen.
Mm-hmm.
He'll become more of a candidate. Now it's a little early now, 4 games of the season, but 4 months into the season next year, yes.
One more question before we wrap up, because this is where my brain went. Doc Rivers hypothetically gets fired from the Sixers. Do you think Celtics ownership would ever want him back?
I don't think Doc would come back. I don't even think. Doc, would I reach out to him if our ownership? I think about it.
Really?
But I don't think Doc would come back.
No, I think the Celtics are in on Mazzulla, depending on. I think that they've seen enough and they're going to see more. I think that unless they get completely overwhelmed. Let's see what happens. The defense has got to get better, but I think from how they're responding through 4 games, and I think that the organization is thoroughly impressed with Joe Mazzulla. They really want this to work. Yeah. They do not want Ime Udoka back as coach. They do not. Now let's see what happens a year from now, maybe that changes. If they go, 48 and 34 and lose in the second round, and they feel like it was a coaching issue. But I think management, ownership really, really want the Mazzulla thing to work.
Yeah, and I think Joe has done a good job so far of making it work and making it hard for them to say, nah, Joe, we're going to go in a different direction. Again, I think that you can't imagine a tougher situation to be brought into where you're brought in as an interim head coach for a year on a team that's built to win a championship, and it's the first time you become a head coach. That's a lot of stuff that is working against you. And we're still early in the season, but I think Joe's done a good job. Although he's got to work on getting his money's worth on those damn texts.
Look,
because they're taking your money, they're gonna take money out your pocket, and I'm a big fan of money well spent.
Go out swinging.
Yes. If you're gonna take money out of me because of my behavior, then damn, my behavior needs to match the fine.
Well, that being said, that has been episode 99 of the A-List podcast, as you mentioned, Jay Crowder, but also that means we're one episode closer to 100. So make sure you tune into that one next week. For A. Shaw Blakely and Gary Washburn, I'm Kwani Lunis. This is the A-List podcast. The A-List podcast is powered by Indeed. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/A-List.